Yeah, so we just start. So greetings to our speakers and participants from different time zones. On behalf of the International Big Cat Alliance, I extend a warm welcome to you all as we come together to commemorate the International Day for the Conservation of the Mangrove Ecosystem, a day observed every year to raise global awareness of the immense ecological, climate, and socio-economic importance of mangroves and to strengthen collective action for their conservation. So today's webinar provides a timely platform to recognize that mangroves are indispensable for big cat conservation, providing critical habitat for iconic species such as tiger and jaguar, while simultaneously safeguarding biodiversity, strengthening climate resilience through blue carbon storage, and sustaining millions of coastal livelihoods. At the outset, I would like to invite Dr. S.P. Yadav, Director General, International Big Cat Alliance, to kindly deliver the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Banerjee. Distinguished speakers, esteemed colleagues, representatives from international organizations, and friends of conservation. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this special webinar being organized by the International Big Cat Alliance on the occasion of the International Day for the Conservation of Mangrove Ecosystem. I extend my sincere appreciation to our eminent speakers from and other participating countries for joining us to share their valuable experiences. Mangrove ecosystems are among the world's most productive natural assets. Mangroves are globally recognized as a blue carbon ecosystems because they capture and store carbon in their vegetation and carbon-rich coastal soils at exceptionally high rates, sequestering carbon up to 10 times faster and storing 3 to 5 times more carbon per unit area if you compare with tropical terrestrial forests, making them one of the world's most effective nature-based solutions for climate change mitigation. They safeguard biodiversity, support millions of livelihoods, and protect vulnerable coastlines. Beyond these remarkable ecosystem services, mangroves also sustain some of the world's most iconic big cats, from the majestic Bengal tigers in Sundarbans of India and Bangladesh to Sumatran tiger in Indonesia and the jaguar in mangrove landscapes of Central and South America. These ecosystems are indispensable for maintaining habitat connectivity, prey populations, and long-term ecological resilience. For the International Big Cat Alliance, mangrove landscapes represent a unique convergence of biodiversity conservation, climate resilience, and sustainable development. As a global platform dedicated to the conservation of all 7 big cat species, IBCA can play a catalytic role by facilitating knowledge exchange among tiger and jaguar range countries, promoting the sharing of successful mangrove conservation practices, supporting collaborative conservation planning and capacity building, mobilizing partnership and resources, and advocating for greater recognition of mangrove ecosystem in global biodiversity and climate agendas. By bringing together different stakeholders, IBCA can help strengthen international cooperation for conserving these globally significant landscapes. I am confident that today's discussions will generate valuable insights and strengthen our collective resolve to conserve mangrove ecosystems, not only for the future of big cats, but also for biodiversity, climate security, and the well-being of millions of people who depend upon these extraordinary landscapes. Thank you, and I wish the webinar every success. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, for wonderfully setting the context. So we would now start the technical session, and we have an excellent lineup of eminent speakers with us today. And we'll take up the questions and comments from our participants at the end of each talk. I would also like to request all other participants to kindly keep their microphones mute while the talks are undergoing. I would now like to invite Mr. N. Vasudevan as the first speaker. Mr. Vasudevan is a senior Indian Forest Service officer who led India's first dedicated mangrove cell in the state of Maharashtra, and currently he is serving as administrative member in Kerala Administrative Tribunal. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me for this important webinar on the International Day for the Conservation of Mangrove Ecosystem. Greetings to all on this very special occasion. I think I should start with a disclaimer. My current designation as Administrative Tribunal Member has nothing to do with the current webinar, because I am here, as you said rightly, as I headed the mangrove cell for about 8 years. And that experience probably would be helpful in this. So I will come to my presentation. I hope it's visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. So this is about lessons learned. So I will not have the opportunity to dwell on many things which I would have otherwise because of the time constraint. But quickly, going into the Project Tiger philosophy. Project Tiger, as you all know, is one of the earliest and largest conservation efforts in the entire world, and that started with this umbrella species approach. But there is this philosophy that conserving an apex predator inevitably conserves the ecosystem that sustains it. Now, things are changing. The Project Tiger approach itself became kind of, more of ecosystem-based approach, and everything is being changed by climate change. So let's look at how climate change changed things. As such, the life in the mangroves is very tough for the tigers. They have to move from one island to island, and there is always the problem of salinity, access to fresh water, prey availability, etc., etc. And now with the climate change, things are going to be much more difficult because some islands may come under permanent submergence. Inundation is there, salinity increases, greater risk of water stress, etc. So if you look at the importance of mangroves, which probably everybody knows here, purely from the climate change angle, it's very important that already it is stated that mangroves have this capacity to sequester carbon 3 to 5 times more than tropical forests. It is like 1 hectare of mangroves. If they are destroyed, it is like having 2,650 odd cars on the road. So the emission part is very important. Although mangroves occupy only 0.7% of the world's geographical area, it contributes to 10% of the deforestation emission. So mangroves are being destroyed all over the world. Probably we can claim that now India is an exception based on official statistics. So apart from climate change, there is this disastrous protection, which is evident during the tsunami and several cyclones that hit our coast all the time. And then very important from the point of view of livelihood, fishery. Fishery, the greatest contribution to fisheries from the mangrove forest. And then people depend on a lot of things for mangrove for livelihood. And they also contribute to the stabilization of land, pollution control, tourism, recreation, etc. But more importantly, they are also the storehouse of salinity tolerance genes. And we may be able to transfer some of these genes to our agriculture and horticulture crops later in the day, so that we are better insured against climate change. Anyway, our record about total mangrove cover in India, this is official statistics from Forest Survey of India. From 1987 to 2023, it has registered an overall increase of 23.58. Because there are issues of the methodology, the transition in the methodology at different points of time, which has also probably distorted the result to some extent. But overall, we can be happy. This doesn't mean that mangroves are under no threat. There are any number of threats to mangroves all over the country. Now there have been a lot of individual efforts, which I'll come to, but Government of India has now launched this MISTI program, which is a flagship program. Now, looking at conservation models, there are several models based on the biosphere reserves, the wildlife sanctuaries. That was the conservation model adopted by West Bengal, Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh to some extent. Tamil Nadu was, they developed their own fishbone structure, which was adopted by many states. And then Andaman Nicobar lands has a very rich mangrove forest, and they stopped the commercial felling in 1987. Gujarat is known for large-scale planting. I have a bias for Maharashtra, so I'll come to the Mangrove Cell and Mangrove Foundation, two institutions which were created in 2012 and 2015 as dedicated institutions for mangrove conservation in the state. A number of livelihood programs were introduced: crab farming, mussel farming, oyster, cage culture, ornamental fish culture, ecotourism, etc. Now, the latest craze is a number of mangrove parks which are coming up all over the state. Now, if you look at the mangrove protection scenario, there are protected areas. Of course, they are covered under the Wildlife Protection Act. There are the reserve forests or protected forests which are covered under the Indian Forest Act. Then there are biosphere reserves and Ramsar sites which have little legal protection. All mangroves fall under CRZ 1, which by itself is not a great protection for private mangroves. And there are, as forests, they are all covered under the Forest Conservation Act. But the main lacuna is that the private mangroves and mangroves on government land, which are not declared either as reserve forests or private forests, protected forests, or PAs, they don't receive much legal protection. So I have tried to summarize the lessons learned, what works and what doesn't work. Because there is greater emphasis on conservation than, what works is greater emphasis on conservation than augmentation through plantation. Because I have already said, the 1 hectare of mangrove destroyed creates so much deforestation. If 1 hectare of mangrove is generated, that doesn't add to so much of carbon sequestration. And then having an institutional umbrella like the Mangrove Cell or the Mangrove Foundation in a state or the national level is an excellent an example of how the activities can be coordinated. And what universally works is community-based and ecosystem-based approach. And in the case of tiger, especially in the case of jaguar, I believe a lot of countries like Brazil, Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, Belize, all these countries, there is transboundary cooperation. In our case, cooperation with Bangladesh is very important. And modern technology, every day we find a lot of new technologies coming up. AI can be effectively used. The involvement of private sector is very critical, and some states like Gujarat have already started using it. And of course, building a cadre of specialists within forest department is extremely important. What doesn't work is, the belief that all this legislation, which I have listed, will address mangrove degradation. And also the over-ambitious plantation targets often adopt because of the different projects or, under pressure from, various organizations or the government itself, that, a disease called targetitis, some people say, is one of the greatest problems that we are facing. And of course, natural regeneration and assisted natural regeneration can play a great role in conserving mangroves. I don't know whether those instruments are being properly utilized. For example, the freshwater flow into the mangroves have not been given any importance anywhere. So that is critical because mangroves thrive in an environment where salt water mixes with fresh water and creates a very conducive environment for mangrove growth. And then there are unscientific restoration programs, which mean wrong selection of site, wrong species selection, wrong timing, so many things. And the one-hat-fits-all approach. For example, if you take the fishbone structure, then you know that it was good in Tamil Nadu, but as you go to the western coast or go up, then the tidal amplitude fluctuations are so much that there is no water during the low tide. So they are like fish out of water. So one-hat-fits approach cannot work. So with this, I think the time is up. I'll conclude. Of course, I may have exceeded by a minute or so. If there are any questions, then probably we have maybe a couple of minutes to answer.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for insightful talk, wonderful talk. So we have a couple of questions for you. One is from Ms. Ajanta Day. She asks, where there are private lands, can we consider OECM as one of the ways of giving a notified status?
Well, that's one of the options that has not been tried anywhere in the mangrove area in our country, but that is probably an option which we should seriously look at. As far as private land is concerned, the government should seriously think of working out some kind of incentives for them to preserve the mangroves. As I said, all the legislation probably unless it is a notified forest land, the IFA or the Wildlife Protection Act or even the Forest Conservation Act may not apply. The protection under the Environmental Protection Act by declaring them as CRZ1 will apply when there is a development point. If somebody decides to simply cut the mangroves in his private land, nobody can stop him. That's a threat. So OECF is probably an approach one has to seriously examine that.
Yeah, so there is another question by Dr. Mahendra Shestra. He asks that absolutely, mangrove forest is the most dynamic and resilient forest ecosystem that are under severe threat around the world, more now from climate change. Do you have record of tiger or other big cats in mangrove forest in India other than in the Sundarban, West Bengal?
To the best of my knowledge, it is not there, but there are other big cat experts, big cat experts here. So maybe they'll be able to throw light on that. There are reports of the lesser fishing cats from Koringa and Odisha, Pitharkarnika and all that. But I don't know about tiger as such. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, can you please unshare your screen so that we can proceed
Sure.
further? Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
thank you, sir. So, I would now like to invite Ms. Elisa Fascini as the next speaker for the webinar. Elisa is a senior program officer at IUCN headquarters and works on the Integrated Tiger Habitat Conservation Program. Over to you, Elisa.
Thank you very much. I'm going to quickly share my screen. Please let me know if you can see it. Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elisa Facchini. I'm a senior program officer. I work within the Species Conservation Action Team at IUCN Secretariat. And today I would like to present about the linkage between mangrove ecosystems and tiger conservation and how they can really support each other, especially within the context of the IUCN Integrated Tiger Habitat Conservation Program. So tigers are listed as endangered by the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species, and there are about 4,500 tigers that remain in the wild in only about 7% of their historic range. The main threats facing tigers are poaching, habitat loss and fragmentation, and human-wildlife conflict. And they are considered an umbrella species and indicators of biodiversity health because their protection indirectly protect thousands of other species and the overall health of the ecosystem. Tiger landscapes are also critical for human well-being because they provide food, water, and medicinal plants for millions of people that are living alongside tigers in these beautiful landscapes. Oops, apologies. So the Integrated Tiger Habitat Conservation Program is a IUCN flagship initiative on tiger conservation that is funded by the German corporation via KfW Development Bank. And this program was created in 2014 as a contribution to the Global Tiger Recovery Program. It consists in a portfolio of large-scale projects in key tiger conservation landscapes that IUCN implements in close collaboration with a wide range of partners, including governments, international and national organizations, and of course, indigenous people and local communities. And since the beginning of the program, we have awarded over 40 grants for the implementation of tiger conservation action on the ground. ITCP promotes a multidimensional approach that all projects have to align with, and it focuses on 3 pillars. One is the protection of species, and specifically tigers and their prey. Then the preservation of habitats, which include the effective management of protected and conserved areas, but also the restoration of degraded area and promoting connectivity among different habitats. And finally, supporting people, and this involves the meaningful engagement of indigenous people and local communities in the project sites where we work. ITSCP works in 7 different countries across the tiger range that you can see indicated in this map. And there are 2 projects that are implemented in mangrove habitats. Because mangrove, as you know, has been already mentioned, they provide a very critical habitat for tigers and their prey. And generally speaking, they provide essential ecosystem services that support coastal communities, biodiversity, and very importantly, climate resilience. However, there was a recent global assessment by the IUCN Red List of Ecosystem that concluded that about 50% of all mangrove ecosystems across the world are at risk of collapse by 2050. And conserving tigers, it's one of the efforts, one of the conservation efforts that can really help protect this landscape and support the overall ecosystem stability. This is because conserving tigers, as of course, effect in the protection of the landscape through, for example, preventing destructive activities, land conversion, logging, and human disturbance, which has a positive effect on the conservation of the mangrove, and also because tigers, as apex predators, they help maintain balanced food webs, and therefore they contribute to the overall ecosystem stability. One of the projects that ITSCP funds is in the Sundarbans, which is the world's largest contiguous mangrove ecosystem, and it covers approximately an area of 10,000 square kilometers. And the Sundarbans supports one of the largest remaining population of mangrove adapted Bengal tigers. There are 101 in India and 125 in Bangladesh. It also supports a large human population. The Sundarbans is a very highly dense populated area, and people are reliant on natural resources for both subsistence and commercial purposes, for example, fish, crabs, and honey. Because of this, there is also high levels of human-tiger interaction and human-wildlife conflicts, as well as pressures on the Sundarbans from climate change, habitat degradation, and pollution. And ITSCP has been working in the Sundarbans since 2018 in collaboration with the Wildlife Trust of India and Wild Team on the Bangladesh side. The main objective of the project we've been implementing is really to reduce human-tiger conflict and to develop positive attitudes towards tiger conservation. And this has been done through different set of activities, including, for example, mobilizing rapid response teams to mitigate human-tiger conflict, but also the installation of deterrent systems, for example, nylon nets or illuminated barriers to reduce tiger incursions into villages. Then the project has also supported improved cook stoves that reduce fuel wood consumption. This reduces the frequency of encounters between humans and tigers as people go less to the forest to get their fuel wood. But also promoted sustainable forest resource collection and safe harvesting practices. This is especially for people that are engaging in forest resource collection, fishermen, honey collectors, etc. And this is very important also to reduce pressure on the mangrove ecosystem. And finally, the project has a strong focus on awareness raising with local communities, but also school children through, for example, initiatives like the Tiger Scouts or the establishment of Sundarbans education centers, which really raise awareness about the importance of this ecosystem among local communities. Another project that ITCP supports is in the Berbak Sembilan landscape. This is in Indonesia. And this is one of the last refuge for the critically endangered Sumatran tiger. There are about 30 to 40 individuals. The Berbak Sembilan landscape is actually a mosaic of habitats. So it's an ecosystem comprising peat swamp forest, mangroves, and lowland forest. And they represent the largest continuous mangrove ecosystem in the eastern coast of Sumatra. Like all the mangroves that we just mentioned before, they also sustain fisheries and protect coastline from erosion. And unfortunately, this landscape is under severe pressure from forest fires, from the expansion of small-scale oil palm plantations, illegal logging, encroachment, and poaching. And ITCP has been working since last year, so it's fairly recent, our work in this landscape, and it's a project implemented with KKI Varsi, with the objective of safeguarding the Sumatran tiger habitat by strengthening effective co-management among local communities, the private sector, and the national park. And the activities include habitat restoration and rehabilitation of degraded areas. This is done through plantation, but also natural regeneration, and also supporting forest fire control and prevention efforts. The project also supports strengthening capacity for tiger monitoring and patrolling to reduce illegal activities in these habitats, as well as to facilitate conservation partnership and social forestry schemes, and supporting community livelihoods linked to, for example, smart agriculture and community-based forest enterprises. So just to conclude, I think the main linkage between mangrove ecosystem and tiger conservation is, first of all, mangroves are a key habitat for the survival of tigers. And healthy mangrove ecosystem, they support not only wildlife, but also human well-being. Therefore, investing in mangrove landscape can deliver benefits for biodiversity, but also for local livelihoods and climate resilience. And tiger conservation and mangrove conservation can support each other, can really be mutually reinforcing, and they're really interlinked in a way that the future of tigers depends on the future of mangroves. All these conservation efforts, they also depend on the meaningful engagement and partnership with indigenous people and local communities. And this is something that our project always try to promote. And throughout the years, we've seen it's really the most effective way of delivering successful conservation efforts. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to take any question there may be.
Thank you, Eliza, for sharing wonderful perspective. We have a couple of questions for you. The first is from Dr. Mahendra Shrestha. He asks, thanks to ITHCP, IUCN KFW for their contribution to the recovery of tigers in its range after 2014. Is the program supporting some of the tiger range countries at the same scale as at the beginning, or has it scaled down its support?
So I thank you for this question. The program actually has been running for 4 different phases of funding. I didn't enter into detail, but ITCP overall is has been supported by KFW with 47.5 million since 2014, and right now we are in the 4th phase of implementation. And it hasn't scaled down. We still fund large scale projects. Usually our projects are between generally 1 million to 2 million euros, which is fairly large for this type of grant making mechanism. And right now we focus on 7 different countries. So I wouldn't say it has been scaled down, but we are also working in different sites compared to what we were funding in previous phases, while we have continued to provide some scale down, let's say, support to projects that we have already been funding since the beginning. So for example, in the Sundarbans, initially the project was much larger, and we just provided with phase 4 some smaller funding for them to continue activities and to promote sustainability of these efforts. I hope this answered the question. Thanks.
Thank you. The second question is from Ms. Ajanta De. She asks, forest fires in mangrove forests are rare. How does it spread, and how do you set up mitigation strategies?
Yeah, I think in this case, the main mitigation strategy of the project that I mentioned in the bareback sand landscape is to partner with local communities. So the project really set up this community-based fire awareness group that are trained, are equipped, and they can quickly respond to forest fire. And this is like in line really with the strategy of the project of promoting co-management approaches to the conservation of these areas.
Thank you, Eliza. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. So I would now like to invite Dr. Esteban Payan as the
Thank you.
next speaker for the webinar. A member of IUCN Cat Specialist Group since 2005, Dr. Esteban founded Panthera Colombia in 2009, and today he brings about the perspectives on jaguar conservation in the mangroves of Americas. Over to you, Dr. Esteban.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning. Let me share my screen. Can you see my slide there, Kaushik?
Yes, visible.
Good. So now we're going to move from the Sundarbans to Latin America, Central and South America. On this Mangrove Day, we're celebrating mangroves and jaguars in the New World. And I wanted to share this map just to show the distribution of different type of mangroves along Latin America. They're all coastal and more or less linear, of course, fragmented much more every day, not as a big continuous clump as Sundarbans. There's around 44,000 square kilometers of mangroves along the American continent, and Latin America holds 20%, some 28,000 square kilometers along the coasts. This is coastal mangrove with some inlets, and it's a vegetation primarily dominated by red mangrove, black mangrove, and white mangrove. So they're threatened, especially by aquaculture expansion. So large-scale commercial fishing farms deforest these areas because of the tidal movements. They're ideal for shrimp farms, especially in the Pacific coast in Colombia and Ecuador. Agriculture and livestock, urbanization, especially along the Caribbean part, and areas very interested in having tourism infrastructure and beachfront properties are a significant threat to mangroves here. And of course, as we've seen also in mangroves in India and Bangladesh, it's pollution with runoff from agricultural pesticides, direct deforestation for timber, infrastructure, and climate change. So I wanted to mention some successful mangrove conservation projects that are occurring right now. One of that is blue carbon, was properly introduced by the director of the IBCA. Blue carbon in Colombia, Northern Colombia, is an established project managed by CI, by Conservation International. In the Pacific coast of Colombia, we've got the Women's Sowers of Change, where shell collectors have been participating through UN with different partners to conserve mangroves, because the key there is that they depend on the shellfish that live in these mangroves, so they sustainably harvest these, and also they contribute to sorry.
Aditya, please.
I'm going to continue. So there's another really interesting project that's a lesson learned in the north of Colombia, in the Ciénaga Grande de Santa Marta. That's a big inland lagoon with a mangrove dynamic, and you can see it here. And what happened was several decades ago, a highway was constructed separating the sea from mangrove. What happened, of course, was all the mangroves died, because the mangroves depend on the saltwater tides and on the fresh water from inland moving for the dynamics to survive. Now, the project has had to open several channels to permit this interchange of salt and fresh water so that mangroves are recovering, and they are. Some really interesting examples also in Guyana, where I've been working extensively, because the Guyana, the Essequibo and other rivers run from south to north. So the whole coast of Guyana is an estuary and depends on mangroves for physical barrier against the sea. So there's really interesting Guyana mangrove restoration project done nationally, and it has trapping sediments and these mudflat forms that degrade over time once the mangrove has grown. So these are just a couple. I won't talk about more of these examples, but they are working, and they highlight the importance of connectivity of freshwater and saltwater, which we'll talk about in a second a bit more, and the barrier function that's really key. Now I want to move to southern Colombia, where I work personally in 2014. This is called the Gulf of Urabá, in between Panama and Colombia, where we were called to work on jaguars because there were attacks on people, on humans. Jaguars don't attack humans usually, or at least not as commonly done in Sundarbans by tigers or leopards in general. So we went to see what was going on, and you can see on the diagram on the right, it's like fingers. The dendritic, the land is like fingers following each little river that ends in the sea. This is what it looks like. And it's called red and black and white mangrove. It has 2,500 millimeter pluviosity per year. And it's really deep. I'm going to show. This is how we had to set camera traps there. You can see the air breathing roots there, and it was really hard to move. You have mud to your knees. And what we found was, yes, there's jaguars. This was a jaguar mother. But there was also very little prey. Because of this mud and the substrate, there's really very little hoofed prey, for example, no peccaries, no much deer. And jaguars had to be very arboreal, had to be, acrobatic nearly too, and they were depending on egrets and birds that live there. So it's a fragile balance because there's not enough food for them. And the attacks turned out to be, I'll show you in a second. One was that this is a cub. A fisherman was looking for worms very near where the cub was hidden, and the mother attacked him and killed him. Didn't consume him, was just an attack. And the other attack was, this is a military base in one of these peninsulas, and the military kept some goats. So on the way to check the goats, the jaguars would come from the mangrove, walk along that side of the beach, patrolling the beaches for debris, for turtles, eggs, for food, really. And the other attack happened because they were going for the goats in the lower part of the screen where they were kept, and just surprised a sentinel soldier that was there. He was asleep actually. So that's what happened. But it was really interesting to see this very delicate balance of jaguars surviving in this environment. This is how the community wanted to defend themselves. There's an Afro-Colombian community living there, and they were very afraid. Of course, these are tin cans tied to a string so that they could hear the animals approaching. This is how we'd have to move. Many of these areas we have to move with the military because there's drug smuggling, because in these coves of mangroves, another threat is drug smuggling. So they hide their illegal substances. This is just Alan Rabinowitz. Of those of you who know him, he worked a lot in Burma and Thailand, and took him there in 2018 to show him what type of how jaguars were living in mangroves. Before we leave this case study, that's actually me with a wild jaguar in the back, about 10 feet behind me. So they don't attack people. That's a key message I want to do. It was these special particular set of circumstances that I mentioned, but in general, they do not attack people, not certainly not in comparison to tigers and leopards. And the final part of this couple of minutes, I wanted to emphasize on something that's also been mentioned, and it's in the importance of the upper freshwater dynamics, upper watershed freshwater dynamics moving to mangroves, in coastal mangroves, and then with the sea, because that manages salt crystal dilution. So solid crystals are diluted once fresh water comes in. Saltwater dilution in itself, volume and tide water regulation, zoning. Different mangrove species sustain different salinities. So that zoning is important, and those that are stronger, that face the waves, depend on exactly that type of saline concentration. Sediment trapping, building coastline, defending the coastline, and of course forcing hydraulic aquifers and the saltwater table, which we don't see, but that's an important pressure mechanism. So the lesson here is it's watershed level conservation, summit to the sea corridor. We need to conserve the forests that produce fresh water, conserve the mangroves that depend on these freshwater dynamics that contain jaguars, of course, and other biodiversity, and beaches and beach fronts. So the hydrological connectivity is a biological highway. The salinity regulation is not just important for jaguar, but for jaguar prey base. Riparian sediments and habitat structural integrity is also key here. And there's an overall umbrella species that was also introduced in the beginning for jaguars, biodiversity, and the whole ecosystem. So the key thing here is connectivity. And I finish with this community life slide where you see a jaguar eating a dead sea turtle. So we need everything connected so that it works well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Esteban, for a wonderful presentation. There is some questions for you. So the first question is, what are the key transboundary challenges in conserving mangroves and jaguars, and what collaborative approaches have proven most effective in addressing them?
Well, that's a great question, and the key word there is transfrontier or transborder. Of course, mangroves or jaguars, they don't recognize our human political boundaries. So we really have to think about ecosystem conservation, ecosystem level conservation, and jaguars are actually because they are also in all these transfrontier areas, have been recognized recently. This was, I don't know, 3 years ago by the international as a migratory species by the migratory entity, which I'm forgetting the name now. So it's key that we join efforts and funds within our neighbors. So this is exactly where you get institutions like IUCN or UN or any transnational funding agencies that work together and fund at multiple levels so that we can conserve this at a population level scale.
The second question is from Dr. Mahendra Shrestha. He asks, was the connection of the mangrove forest with the sea and saltwater tide restored that was disconnected by the highway?
Yes, it was the highway disconnected because the highway has to be based on on land. So it was a human-made barrier that separated and killed the mangroves inside inland, and those also those in the follow see just a dead landscape. Fortunately, there was a remedial action, there was funding, and the channels were reopened. Of course, not even to mention the loss of money and bad planning and bad hydrological planning. But now it's working again, and it's proof that you can remediate these infrastructure errors.
Thank you, Dr. Esteban. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I would now like to invite Ms. Ajanta De as the next speaker for the webinar. Ms. Ajanta has been working on ecological restoration of landscapes with an ecosystem-based approach for over 2 decades, and she is the Joint Secretary and Program Director of Nature, Environment and Wildlife Society. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Kaushik and IBCA for this opportunity to interact on the World Mangrove Day. And can you see the slides?
Yes, it's visible, but can you make it full screen?
Yeah, I have made it.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah. Please,
Okay.
please go ahead.
So, from Nature, Environment, Wildlife Society, we have the mission to co-create evidence-based models. So, I will talk about it that there are so many things to talk about in the context of Sundarban when we talk about mangroves and the tiger linkages. But I would like to stress on certain issues and how evidence-based models are very, very important now to understand the futuristic ways of conservation that we need to take up. About us, that we are working in the interface of the science community and policy for nature conservation. Over 35 plus years of conservation. We started in, I remember in 2000, we were working only on tiger straying or olive ridley turtle, but our perception totally changed when repeated number of cyclones started coming in the region, and we shifted our focus to the mangrove with an ecosystem-based approach, as Esteban said, that it is very important, and we felt that the need of mangrove restoration with a community-based ecological restoration models are very much needed, and we started on this journey to test the pilot model from 2007. And then when Isla happened in 2009, a super cyclone, we upscaled it to 5,000 plus hectares, and we do not leave the places. So till 2007, where we are working in all our sites, we still continue to monitor, see the wonderful thing that it brings to biodiversity, to life, and that 5,200 plus hectares of mangroves is still monitored by our community stewards, our mangrove mitras, our green brigades, so that we continue to protect the species, conserve habitats, secure the livelihoods of 4.5 million people. As you know, it's a very dense area. Build stewardship. Otherwise, it is a very, through this journey, it's a long, long learning that we had, that how to build this stewardship. I will give you just one example. We initially started with deputing like forest guards. You know, we used to pay from the projects some amount of money in all the more than 100 sites that we are working from, if you know Sundarban, from Hingolganj to Shagor Island. And then after 4 years, when the forests were growing, so we found that these forest guards were not that way necessary. And then what happened was that when we discontinued that engagement, many of them turned to be the Frankenstein, and they said that we are not getting the money, maybe we destroy, or if the other communities were saying that they are getting the money, why should we protect? So what we transformed into, through our experience, into group model, that the women groups, they will do the monitoring, they as a group, and these are now our Badabun farmers interest groups. Like Badabun, as you know, in Bengal is called the Mangroves. So building this stewardship was not easy. It's still challenging, but a lot of lessons learned, and each can be a talk of its own. But I will just swiftly go through certain highlighting areas where I would like to take advantage of the esteemed dignitaries who are there to catch their attention and find ways of working alongside. So, and then influence policies, as I said, through the models, impact landscapes. So there are 84 mangrove species in the Indian Sundarban, and just now we heard that around 100 and 101 individual tigers that has been captured through ITE. And why is it important that we have this 84 mangrove species? This biodiversity is also very unique. I through my journey, I sometimes feel as a conservation practitioner that this diversity may be the reason for being Sundarban as the only mangrove tiger habitat in the world. So much of diverse species actually helps in the adaptation philosophy of the landscape. So if we look at the Sundarban ecosystem, basically tiger is at the apex predator, but it is a mangrove ecosystem. And how does the dependence work? So if you see the mangrove function and the tiger dependence, it's a dense vegetation, provides cover, breeding refuge, and for tiger dependence, wonderful camouflage, because we have this succession of the mangroves, primary succession, secondary succession, tertiary succession, and we know in the highest areas in the tertiary succession, we have the Phoenix paludosa, and it's a perfect area for the tigers to camouflage and move about, roam about the higher areas of the land also. So for hunting, resting, this one supports the prey base, the deer, boar, crabs. In Sundarban, we have also seen in forest department camera traps that the tigers are having crabs. So they eat everything in their food chain, whatever comes. So crabs, fish. So that sustains the tiger diet and the population. That regulates the hydrology and the nutrient flow, because that is very, very important to maintain the freshwater balance. We were hearing about it, the importance of the freshwater balance in this sort of deltaic ecosystem, shoreline ecosystem, and the prey productivity. So these linkages are directly there, and the carbon sequestration and the coastal protection, which ensures the long-term habitat stability. Now, the stress factors on the ecosystem actually weakens the linkages. If we look at the stress factors, there are many, but let's look at some of the major points like the habitat fragmentation, because we have made embankments. Before the delta has matured, we have, even in the Britishers' time, we have gone there and we have made settlements. It's very interesting to know that when you have in certain areas in Sundarban, like you have the Moridchapi Island and the Kumirmari Island, which is a habitat island, and the Moridchapi, which is now not an uninhabited island. If you see the level of the ground, like this, the level of the landmass, so the forest islands are much higher placed than the villages, because through the normal tidal exchanges, still the process of deltaic deposition, sediment accretion is going on. But in the habitat islands, just because we have made that embankment, so we have stopped that natural flow, the rendezvous of the rivers, that I flow, I deposit, I go around and make my ways. So we have stopped which is more than twice the global average. So in one way, sea level rise is happening, and in the other way, we are reducing the freshwater flow. We have listened to it that in Bhitarkunik also, we face that Hirakund Dam. We are making the dams. In case of Indian Sundarban, we have the Farakka. 40,000 cubic water is designated for us, but actually we receive around 27,000 of cubic water. And that too is flowing around the certain channels. So up in the network of the crisscross channels that were there, which were supplying this freshwater flow into this tidal delta, has totally stopped in certain cases. When Kolkata, Newtown, Salt Lake, there was a rapid urbanization, and now the Matla River, which is one of the major rivers in the central part of the Sundarban, has become a total tidal river, totally delinked from its freshwater flow connect to the Bhagirathi Hooghly. So all this are very, very serious problems. Cyclone, sea level rise, we know human tiger conflict from shrinking prey base, it rises, and then pollution and over exploitation of the forest aquatic resources, that also makes the stress factors. The ecosystems are the weak. I would just look at the salinity part, considering the paucity of the time. So we did a study. We are still doing, you see the map here, in 8 areas, in the central part, in the eastern part, and the western part. The data is taken every 13th and the 22nd day of the month. Over the last 3 years only I have taken that analyzed, but we have the data till last 10 years. And you see in that riverine areas, if we consider just April to June, because that's the time when there's maximum hot and humid climate is there, expected salinity rises the most. So if you see the comparison between April to June 2026, you will see that the change is almost plus 10 to 11 in the Hooghly River. So it's in the on the western side of it, where we are getting the freshwater flow. Whereas in the Matla River, where it's, as I said, Matla River is delinked, we are getting a salinity change of plus 15 to 20 in only 3 years. Just mind that in only 3 years, it's a sharp increase. Biddadhuri also, you can see that there's a sharp increase. In fact, the Biddadhuri River, which originally used to be there connecting Bhagirathi, is died on the Kolkata banks. East Kolkata wetland, we have a small area there, but still a part of the channel still flows, and there you see the change is like plus 13 to plus 14. And again, Thakuran is down there, plus 17 to 19. Raimongol on the eastern side, we have a little stable to slight rise. And what I wanted to just say is that the salinity rise is severe. And we did a study also, it has come up in the publication that it is also, it has been funded by World Bank. Ishtiaq Choban in the Bangladesh side, we worked together, and the publication was also done that the mangrove assemblages are also changing hugely. And like I said in the first slide, the diversity, which is crucial to a thriving mangrove tiger habitat, is where it is being threatened. So as I quickly go through this, that when we talk about salinity rise, it's actually the freshwater flow is reducing, at the same time saltwater intrusion. Both is simultaneously happening. And on the mangrove, you can get the species assemblages are changing because we find more saline tolerant species, and species preferred trees like, you know, the deer loves Soneratia. Whoever will go there, see, in fact, in Eliza's presentation also, I saw a deer standing and eating the leaves of the Soneratia. So species preferred by the deers are losing, forest cover are getting impacted, productivity is reduced, prey, as I said, the preferred trees gets impacted, population gets affected, the herbivore population gets affected, shrinking grazing areas. If we have a greater sea level rise impact, freshwater scarcity, there is a limit to the tolerance of, we know that the species, animals in the Sundarban, they take saline water, but there's a limit to the tolerance of that salt water in your body. So how it will affect if there is a continuous freshwater scarcity that goes on. We are having increasing saline blanks. If you do a GIS map, you can very well see that those saline blanks which affects the grazing and the shelter areas. And this mangrove, which affects the prey species, also affects the prey-predator relation with the prey availability, scarce freshwater, as I said. How much is the limit to the salinity tolerance? And this all increased human stress on livelihoods. Fishing increases stress on protected areas. They would not find, like more salinity, we find the phytoplankton, zooplanktons that are changing are becoming more stenohaline species. And then trash species are more in the fishing areas, so there will be more pressure on the protected areas, buffer areas that we go deeper, and that creates a pressure on the protected
Madam,
areas. So
if you can please adhere to the time.
Yeah. So policy advocacy, and so just to go quickly, increase the freshwater flow from the upper delta. We are happy that with the forest department and irrigation waterways department, news has been instrumental in making it. Multi-species restoration plan, especially the red species, co-management, stewardship, multi-stakeholders partnership. Researches are very, very important in understanding the change in the phenology, propagation patterns of vivipary. Tidal gauge, we still do not have 2 tidal gauges we have in Sundarban, Indian part, whereas Bangladesh has more than 30, which is very, very crucial to understand the sea level rise impacts. Revive mangrove areas from the illegal fishery encroachments. Our forest minister has given a vow now that it will be done, and innovative financing is required. The private sector is looking only at the carbon part, which should not be looked at it. Mangroves provide huge number of ecosystem services. Sustainable models valorizing the mangrove value chain is required. What, as a conservation practitioner, I feel is that the multi-stakeholder partnerships, multi-actor partnerships are very, very much required. So problems will come, but together, from silos to synergies, from isolated projects to collective impact, and from fragmented landscape to connected futures is where we have to work together. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Ms. Ajanta, for wonderful presentation. So we'll take two quick questions. One is from Dr. Mahendra Shreshtha. Are you also working in the mangrove forest of 24 Parganas together with the Sundarban? And what are the challenges there compared to the Sundarban?
So we have 2 forest areas in the Indian Sundarban, that's Sundarban Tiger Reserve and also the 24 Parganas Forest South Division. Yes, we are working in both areas. As I said, salinity is also one important factor, and in the South Sundarban Tiger Reserve, the protected area status is a bit, I would say, structured more, but in 24 Parganas Forest South Division, it is still not a tiger reserve area declared. So anthropogenic disturbances are more there. So in that way, we have to have mitigation and adaptation strategies that can look into all these anthropogenic disturbances. And salinity, of course, as I said, is there.
There is a question from Dr. Vinod Mathur. He is asking that what in your view are 2 short-term and 3 long-term measures that the Sundarban Tiger Reserve management needs to take to deal for managing the variations in salinity levels to ensure long-term conservation of tigers?
So first we need is the data. I was there in last week in Sundarban with the joint director of the forest department of the Sundarban Biosphere Reserve, and he was asking me that do you have data, salinity data outside? So I was very surprised because there we find that there were very many universities who work on that. So first we need a consistent data that is required on certain ponds, like we are collecting 13th, 26th of every month. Not it's like a erratic haphazard. Number one. Number two, we need this tidal gauge, sir, because this tidal gauge will give you the level of the sea level rise that is happening, the tidal fluctuations, amplitude that is changing over the time. And for salinity also, sir, we need the freshwater flows. And I'm happy that the forest department is now working on the shore project with World Bank and with the ADB on the upper delta project, where all these are being looked into. So
Yeah. And there is a last question for you. The Sundarbans is often described as a battleground between climate change and conservation. How are tigers and local communities adapting to this challenge?
both are coexisting and adapting in their own ways. This is very difficult to say, but there are sometimes it bursts. But as you know, when cyclones happen, we have seen that the tigers behave just after cyclones in a very weird way. They become suddenly very aggressive. But again, with time, they become a little bit again adapted to the situations, because the situations are really becoming very, very difficult with all the stress factors that multiply and exponentially together when a cyclone event happens. So everyone is managing, and it's to see that how well we have the tiger management plan, the Sundarban management plan, not only the tiger management plan, with an ecosystem based approach to have a long standing a total roadmap.
Thank you, madam, for sharing your wonderful perspective. And we would now like to invite the last speaker for today's webinar, Mr. Mohammad Zahidul Kabir. Mr. Kabir is working as Deputy Chief Conservator of Forest of Bangladesh Forest Department and is a member of 20... Hello. Yeah, and is a member of 22nd Bangladesh Civil Service Forest Cadre. An alumni of Wildlife Institute of India, he has more than 2 decades of working experience in the field of forestry, wildlife, and PA management. Over to you, Mr. Kabir. Mr. Kabir, you have to unmute yourself. You are muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my slide is not moving. So I'm going to share my slide.
So what did this guy say about the AGM with us?
He said, yes, he can have it during. Aditya, can you share his slide? I think he has already shared over WhatsApp. So if you can share your screen.
But we need to give a notice also.
Yeah, so if we put the notice now.
Yes, now it is moving. Can you see my slide?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. Welcome everybody. I'm Jahidul Kabir from Bangladesh. So I have been asked to talk on the conservation lessons from Bangladesh. So this is the map of the Sundarban Bangladesh side. You see the southern part is the Bay of Bengal, and northern part is the mainland Bangladesh, and eastern part is the coastal district, and western part is the inland part of Sundarban. And it has almost more than 6,000 square kilometer area, where the downward part you see the dotted line is the wildlife sanctuary, covering almost 52% wildlife sanctuary in the country. And administrative division, it has 4 ranges marked in the black color. Eastern from the eastern part, Sharonkhula, then Chatpai, then Khulna range, and then Satkhira range. So this is the overall introduction of the show. So I'm actually all the speakers have the same voices, and I'm also with them. The around 3.5 million people is dependent on the Sundarban directly or indirectly. So it's a huge pressure on Sundarban, and it's a World Heritage Site. It's a Ramsar site. And it has huge biodiversity and ecosystem services value, and also carbon sink, acting as a carbon sink. So regarding, you see that the biodiversity, as per the Hossein and Acharya, 1994, we have 123 tree species, out of which 28 is the true mangrove, and globally it is 55 true mangrove. So it's a very rich, and major species, Sundari, Gawa, Goran, Poshur, Pine, etc. And Kaura is the distinct patches. Dipa is there, and about 234 small patches, 7 patches of grassland in the Sundarban. That is also very important. And over the 40 years, our study found that though the above ground biomass in Sundarban, if we consider the 3 major species covering more than 80% of the area, so above ground biomass is increasing in case of Sundari and Gawa, but the number of seedling per hectare is decreasing. And Goran, in case of Sundari and Gawa, in case of Goran, number of seedling per hectare is increasing. So this is alarming, because Goran is a very small plant rather than Gawa and Sundari. They can store very less carbon, and this is due to the increase of salinity in the Sundarban. So major challenges for habitat management is, as I have mentioned, the changing vegetation cover, number 1. So top dying of Sundari is another. The Sundari is dying, so affecting approximately 125.5 million trees, with 20.24 million severely invested. That means 50% investors, and the estimated 15% biomass loss since 1980 due to the top dying of Sundari. And definitely huge pressure on resources, fish, crab, and other resources. And some part of Sundarban, around 140 hectare, being elevated and restrict the regular inundation in that area, creating problem, and frequent fire incidents happens in that area. Last 25 years, around 25 to 26 incidents happen that damage almost 80.36 acres of land. And the incidents happen during March and May, the dry season in the elevated land, due to the presence of hibiscus tiliaceus. This is the very fire-prone species. It's a mangrove associate, not the mangrove. And we have the study of alien invasive species. We could found 14 species identified, among them Assam Lota, Kali Lota are the major invasive species, mainly in our grassland of Sundarban. So Sundarban, regarding the faunal diversity, it's also very rich. I'll not go for detail. It had tiger, including jungle cat, fishing cat, and leopard cat. 3 cats are also there. So if you see the 3 consecutive tiger estimation through camera tracking in 2015, 18, and 24, the average density of 3, the last one is 2.64 per 100 square kilometer. In 2018, 2.55 per 100 square kilometer, and in 2015, 2.17. Though the average density increases, but you see that in Satkhira range and Chakpai Sharankhola range, the density decreases, whereas in the Khulna range, the density increases in this area. And this study, this is the pre-based study. The first time we did it in 2023 with the KFW IUCN supported Integrated Tiger Habitat Conservation Project, jointly by the IUCN Wild University and the Forest Department. We could find the spotted deer. You see, the spotted deer is the most diet cover. Almost 78% diet of tiger comes from the spotted deer, and 11% come from the wild boar, and rest 11% is others. So spotted deer density per square kilometer 35 plus per kilometer square, and wild boar density 15. Northern red muntjac is very poor density, and it is reducing. It's another alarming that muntjac density is decreasing. Rhesus macaque 2.97, water monitor 6.29, and Malayan porcupine is 5.30. All the species are the prey species of tiger. Recently, we did another study that parasitic infestation and other communicable diseases with their causal agents and extents in Sundarban. The study of this objective of this study is to investigate the prevalence and distribution of parasitic infestation, and another objective is investigate the communicable disease is there in tiger and wild species. So you see what we have find that among the predator, the tiger, so parasitic infestation is the highest. That Spirometer species 60.34%, and Meningia species in deer it is the high 33.96. Strongyloides is the monkey, presence in monkey 66%, and among the Meningia species and B. coli in pig, wild pig 47.62%. So it is a concern, really concern. Though we collected sample, it is this study is based on the fecal sample, but this is the first study, and next time we will go for the blood sample and identify the seroprevalence. What we learned from these lessons is the Bengal tiger, in Royal Bengal tiger, it is 85.3% infected by the parasite. And second is that we find multi-drug resistance, E. coli and Klebsiella pneumonia. This is another important findings. And another is that CDV, canine distemper virus, though in the scat sample, we could not find any evidence of CDV in tiger. But in the community dog surrounding the Sundarban, we find 56.25% that dog is affected by canine distemper virus. That is very alarming, and anytime this dog can contaminate, this virus can contaminate our tiger in Sundarban. So we started smart patrolling in Sundarban 2015, and it brings very good result. But still there are some gaps and lapses. But when we do this smart patrolling with foot patrolling and surveillance, drone surveillance, it really works very well. So it is our lesson that if we can combine this patrolling system with foot patrolling and drone-based patrolling, it really works well in Sundarban. And definitely community-based human tiger management, tiger conflict was very high in our part of Sundarban, especially in Shatkiran. Sorry. So with the collaboration of NGO Wild Team, the Forest Department formed 49 village tiger response team, 1 forest tiger response team, emergency rescue team, and 4 CMC and 211 BCA. Forest Department had formed as a part of community-based management. So you see the table below that since 1981 to 2000, tiger total attack human killing 3,000 more, and average 28.69, and tiger killing 1,259, and average in 9.91, whereas since 2001 to 25, the incidents really reduced, where 224 human killing and average death 8.96 per year, and total tiger killing 14, average tiger death per year is 0.56. Still, the human death and tiger death is continuing. So recently, we have a lesson that we rescued on injured tiger that was really trapped by, you see the deer trap, the nylon rope trap. The tiger is caught. And then we rescued the tiger. You see the second picture, how badly the tiger is injured. And with the expert veterinarian team from our veterinary universities, they have treated it, they give the treatment, and with the antibiotic, they gradually recovered. But we observed that the tiger in the injured place, tiger is leaking actually. So that was it is. Then we used the surgical tape in the fourth picture you see to cover the injured area. Then gradually the tiger improved, and we on July 12th this month, we have released this tiger. That is the hard release to the Sundarban, and the tiger has captured in primary trap in the Sundarban. It is doing well in that area. So it is a learning for us. Earlier in 2014, we rescued one injured tiger, but we could not save it. This time we successfully saved the tiger. And based on the learnings, Forest Department developed integrated resource management plan that Ajanta they was talking that we have to manage Sundarban as an ecosystem. So we are managing not only the wildlife, we are managing the whole Sundarban and thinking to improve our management through this management plan. And it has 11 components. You see the sustainable forest management component, protected area management program, wildlife management and habitat protection program, climate change mitigation adaptation program, ecotourism program, fishery management program, co-management and livelihood support program, administration, World Heritage Site and Ramsar Site, down timber forest product management, and finally pollution control and waste management program. Sundarban, the disease I have described, the parasitic, bacterial and viral disease in the Sundarban is actually mainly from the pollution. So the pollution is also very important component that we have. If you have any question.
Thank you, Mr. Jahidul. So there is a question from Dr. Vinod Mathur. So he basically compliments you. Great presentation, Jahidul. Can you please elaborate on what more steps are needed to further promote the Indo-Bangladesh transboundary cooperation for conservation of tigers in this unique ecosystem, and what role can IBCA play in this?
Thank you, sir. Namaskar, sir. Thank you for receiving a question from your side. Actually, we have one protocol between India and Bangladesh for the conservation of tiger. But I think all the activities under this protocol is now suspended. No activities right now. The last meeting happened, I think it is in 2019. Then after that, no meeting is there. So first of all, we have to sit together. We have many areas of collaboration, many areas, because it's about transboundary forest. And our tiger is moving to Indian part. Indian tiger is coming to our part. So a lot of common issues. And I would like to thank Ajanta De for nicely mentioning the freshwater issues. It's a big issue of Sundarban. All the problem that we are facing, I have mentioned top dying Chundari, the increasing salinity, vegetation pattern is changing. All these due to the salinity. The freshwater is the lifeline of mangroves. So this is one of the major area that we can collaborate in upcoming days, and also some bilateral issues is there. We take support from the Wildlife Ministry of India, and we started tiger estimation and other program. Now we in Bangladesh developed the capacity to estimate the tiger number alone. But initially we take support from Wildlife Ministry of India. So there are, I think there are many issues. If we sit together, we can discuss more. First of all, we need to sit together. That is the important right now. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, there is the last question from Dr. Mahendra Shrestha. He also compliments you for great presentation. Considering the CTV presence in the dogs in the community, tigers in the Sundarbans are at great risk. What kind of preventive measures that you are undertaking? Is the smart patrol preventing snaring of tigers? And what does the lower rate of human attacks from tiger in recent years indicate? Better management or low tiger population?
Thank you very much. You know, the Bangladesh Sundarban tiger population is stable or slightly increasing. It was in 2015 106, now it is 125. So it's a clear indication that tiger number is not decreasing. Tiger number is increasing. So it's a better community management. So PTRT is working, the CMC, CPC, community patrolling group are working. So all community groups are working, and a lot of awareness campaign you have raised among those who are going to inside the forest for harvesting crab and fisheries, and the collecting honey and crab. So this is all the result of these community activities. The number of incidents, conflict incidents reduces. So then you have mentioned another, the CDV question. Yes, it is we are moving towards the One Health approach. In the One Health program, we are taking initiative with the Department of Livestock Services to vaccinate the dog population, community dog around the Sundarban. So this is the first initiative. Then the in-depth study is also required, because the scat sample do not always give the good result or accurate results. Sometimes it may be misleading. So the next study, we are expecting that with the collaboration of the veterinary universities, we collect sample, blood sample, whenever we can catch a tiger or trap a tiger or other prey species. We'll collect the blood sample and go for the investigation. But right now, the collaborative approach, on health approach, is the best approach we could identify, so that we can save our tiger from the CPT. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So Dr. Mathur, basically, he says that now we have IBCA and we should make full use of the IBCA in pushing the collaborative approach. That is a suggestion from his side. Thank you, Mr. Jayadul, for wonderful presentation. And with this, we come to the end of the technical session, and I would now like to invite Mr. Soumitra Dasgupta, Director Program at IBCA, to kindly deliver his concluding remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kaushik. Distinguished speakers, Mr. N. Vasudevan, retired Indian civil servant, spending a large part of his service life for mangrove conservation in the state of Maharashtra. Ms. Eliza Pakhini, IUCN, Senior Program Officer. Dr. Esteban Payan, member IUCN CAT Special Program Director of Nature, Environment and Wildlife Society. And Mohammed Shahidul Kabir Ji, Deputy Conservator of Forests, Bangladesh Forest Department. We were aided by all of you. It was knowledge-oriented, thought-provoking, and it was absolutely insightful and a gold mine of information for all of us who attended today's webinar. Thank you so much from the International Big Cat Alliance. Regarding the importance of mangroves, I would not like to spend even a minute because all of you have given such an insightful information about the importance of mangrove and why it is so important for the climate sustainability in the present global scenario. But for us, International Big Cat Conservation Alliance, mangroves are the critical habitats for big cats. Although it looks odd, but it is a fact that tigers do happen in mangroves like Sundarban, both in India and Bangladesh. There are reports of tigers, Sumatran tiger in mangrove areas in Sumatra. We are well aware. What we also came to know from Dr. Esteban's presentation today is the Pantanal wetlands, the presence of jaguar in Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, the coastal mangrove system of Belize, Panama, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, and even northern part of Brazil. Some are even questioning whether leopards are found. Yes, of course, they have been reported in the coastal wetlands and mangrove fringes in parts of India and Southeast Asia. Apart from this, there are several other endangered felids which are associated with mangroves. So mangroves are immensely important for the big cats as well as for the small cats. So it's quite obvious that conservation of mangroves that directly contributes to the conservation of several globally important felids and other species. For International Big Cat Alliance, we strongly affirm that conserving mangrove is essential for biodiversity conservation, climate action, disaster risk reduction, and sustainable livelihoods. The International Big Cat Alliance calls for stronger international cooperation, scientific monitoring, restoration initiatives, community participation to secure the future of mangrove ecosystems for generations to come. For IBCA, mangrove conservation is intrinsically linked to the conservation of big cats, particularly tiger, jaguar, and leopards. As we all have been discussing today, I think Dr. Pastaban's presentation, we came to know about the intergovernmental work which is going on in the Southern Americas, which has been initiated by the Conservation of Migratory Species as Jaguar Initiative. And as rightly pointed out by Dr. Vinod Mathur in his question, that the collaboration of India and Bangladesh will bring about pioneering changes for big cat conservation once they have a transboundary protected area created in the future. For this, we believe both the governments, Bangladesh as well as India, has to sit and strongly advocate for the cause, because that eventually will help for the big cat conservation, especially the tiger conservation in this area. The International Big Cat Alliance stands shoulder to shoulder for creating this association or frontier protected area between India and Bangladesh, and will support out and out in every way to make this a reality in the future. International Big Cat Alliance is in process for collaboration of mangrove conservation and restoration, which will sustain biodiversity conservation in the future and secure the ecological integrity of the big cat habitats. Protecting mangroves is therefore an integral component of IBCA's major mission to conserve big cats and their ecosystem across the globe. So before I conclude, I would say that 364 days, 24 hours, we talk and practice conservation, but perhaps these are the days, the special days, where we all come together, the right-headed people, the right-minded people, thinking of the right cause, and let us take a pledge for making the mangrove ecosystem even stronger in the future. So that will enable not only the climate sustainability, but will also ensure the survival of the big cat in the future. Once again, I thank all of you for your precious time sparing with us. Thank all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful concluding remarks and aptly summarizing today's webinar. And on behalf of IBCA, we once again thank today's esteemed speakers and participants for sparing their valuable time to make the webinar successful. And I would like to thank Dr. Tamali and Mr. Aditya, who are the program associates at the IBCA Secretariat, for assisting in organizing the webinar, and the Sankala Foundation, our knowledge partner, for promoting the webinar on social media. Thank you. Bye-bye. Yes.